Hey, how y'all doing? I'm Breyionna Flowers. I thought it would be real cool to take one of those genetic DNA tests and try to see where my roots lie. I did this in 2016, I believe, for the first time with AncestryDNA.com. And I've been kind of checking the changes over the years, and so I kind of wanted to come to you all and show those results. The reason that I initially did the DNA test with Ancestry was because first I actually used Ancestry to build my family tree. I am of African American heritage. My family on both sides were born, raised in the southern US, and so like a lot of Black people throughout the African diaspora, there is sometimes a sense of longing because our ancestors were kidnapped and then trafficked across the ocean to the Americas. A lot of these regions have people of African descent, Black folk, and so a lot of us don't really know where exactly in Africa our ancestors came from. However, despite this, our ancestors who were brought to these countries afar did a really great job of preserving certain aspects of their original ethnic groups. And a lot of that has been passed down to our generations. And new cultural traditions, new outlook, new cultures, everything was created, as well as languages and dialects. A lot of Pidgin and Creole languages were created from African languages blending in with indigenous American as well as European languages. Me specifically, because I am from the southern US, we have our own dialects by region as well. I'm from Arkansas. So though I'm speaking somewhat clearly of an English for you all, when I'm back home, it's a lot more different. You might hear me talking like this when I'm with my family, and so you might not always understand it there, but that's how we talk where I'm from, and that's North Little Rock, Arkansas. And so despite the fact that these languages were created, they were created from something, and so the dialect of Southern AAVE, or Southern African American Vernacular English, was one of the dialects created. Now, using Ancestry.com, I was able to find census forms, all kind of things that allowed me to kind of trace my family all the way back until the slavery period. Now, like a lot of African Americans, I was not able to break that enslavement wall, which means I wasn't able to go back before the early 1800s. It's because during the time of slavery, enslaved Black folk were not listed by name on census forms. However, they were listed more so as property. So if a European man owned slaves, on census forms, they would be listed by either male or female, as well as about how old they were. Sometimes the age wasn't even on there. For me, that information mainly starts at the 1870 census form. So for the most part, my family, I knew for a fact, was of African heritage. I knew just due to the history of slavery, especially pertaining to Black bodies, that there were a lot of Black women in the US and the Caribbean, all of these places where there were enslaved people. The women were raped oftentimes by slave owners. So I knew for a fact that there would be some kind of European heritage, and knowing that my father was from the Louisiana area, I was really thinking, okay, there'll be some French somewhere along the line. And with my mother's side of the family being more so from South Carolina, North Carolina, I was like, okay, there might be some British, because I know the colonies were more so on that side. So British, Wales, possibly some indigenous DNA as well. It became somewhat apparent that my maternal grandfather's line would probably have some Native American indigenous heritage, not through marriage, but because I actually believe that that side of my family was enslaved by Choctaw and Cherokee Nation. I was able to find a lot of enrollment forms, well, I'll say applications into those indigenous nations oftentimes they were declined, and on the forms, you know, they had them listed as Negroes. I didn't find any for my specific ancestors. They did not apply for enrollment into any of the Native American nations. However, there were a lot of Black people with the same surname, and a lot of them from the same region that my family was from. So I kind of believe that some of them might have been related. I also found that name listed amongst Native American people on reservations already. So I do believe that those nations might have owned my family. And I know a lot of Black people say I have indigenous in my family, but that wasn't necessarily celebrated by my grandfather. Whenever my aunts or one of them would bring it up, he would get very upset. There was kind of that air or rumor that his father or great-grandfather was actually an indigenous man who raped one of my great-great-grandmothers. I knew going in that these were estimates, and I think everyone who looks at these DNA tests should also look at it that way as well. So the first results that I received from Ancestry DNA are as follows. Cameroon, Congo, 25%. Ivory Coast, Ghana, 21%. Benin, Togo, 17%. Nigeria, 11%. Mali, 6%. And I'll be honest, I did not open up the low confidence regions. I forgot to do it when I screenshotted it before everything changed. So I will say I knew for a fact that it had Northwestern Europe. That was a low percent. I think it was like 4%. And then also Indigenous American. At the time, I think it said Native American. That was about 3% as well. And so then I also have my migration regions. And that comes up as North Carolina African Americans, as well as Virginia and Southern states African Americans. And because I do know my family was on that coast originally, that makes 100% sense. So my second update did change, and so here are the results for that. So I have Cameroon, Congo, 41%, Benin, Togo, 36%, Ivory Coast, Ghana, 7%, England, Wales, and Northwestern Europe, 5%, Mali, 4%, Nigeria, 3%, Native American, North, Central, and South, that came up to 1%, and it decreased by about 3%. So I'll be honest, I think it was like 2019, my anxiety was kind of high, and my results kept changing. Like 1 week, it like changed like 3 times in a matter of a week, which wasn't common, so I was confused. And it was just the Cameroon, Congo amount kept changing. And I was like, what is going on? And I didn't know if there was, like, at the time, a lot of people, Black people specifically, who were taking the test, and so I didn't know if that was changing my results or not. But I just deleted my I didn't delete my account, but there's an option to actually remove your results and have them destroy your sample and all of that. So I did that. I regret it. But like I said, my anxiety was high. I was like, y'all playing with my emotions. So I did end up taking the test again, and I took it this year. So just to recap, that original, that was about 2016, and then I looked at the update around 2018, and I deleted the account. I did a new one this year, well, the end of last year. So it was December 2022 is when I got these new results. So here are those. Nigeria, 31%. Cameroon, Congo, and Western Bantu peoples, 26%. Ivory Coast, Ghana, 16%. Benin and Togo, 11%. Mali, 6%. Norway, 4%. Wales, 3%. Nigeria, I'm sorry. Nigeria, East Central, 1%. Sweden and Denmark, 1%. South Italy, 1%. So for the most part with these new results, it pretty much looks very similar. Pretty much the same regions, except where before it had Northwest Europe, and I think that was mainly listed under like Britain, but now I was able to really break that down, because Scandinavian that region did come up before, so now they kind of separated that, and I can see the Norway as well as the Sweden and Denmark by itself. And then whereas before it was mainly British heritage, now they were able to kind of pinpoint that it was Wales. And also Nigeria increased all the way as well. I believe by the last update it might have been 3%. I think it went from like 11 to 3, I believe, or 3 to 11. So that jumped all the way to 31%, and Cameroon Congo became my second at 26%. However, when we click the ranges, Nigeria says that it could be anywhere from 22 to 43%. And that Nigeria, if we look at the map, that also includes Chad and Central African Republic. And then if we look at Cameroon Congo in that map, as well as the range is 12% to 32%. And so that includes Cameroon, Central African Republic, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Uganda, Burundi, parts of Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique, Angola as well. And so yeah, the Bantu regions and the semi-Bantu regions. Looking at this and what I do know from being able to trace my family's haplogroups, which I do recommend that you all do. Ancestry does not give that option, but my family, I ended up having to go to cousins because I could trace my mother, and then I have haplogroups from my cousins as well. So I was able to trace my father's mother's haplogroup. But being able to actually look at your matches is what helped me. So because of that, we were actually able to take it a step further and actually kind of explore regions that each of my family line comes from. So looking at this, for me, it does make sense for the most part. And I say that because even looking at the European side of it, my last name is Flowers. I learned that Flowers is actually a Welsh name. And while in English, flowers are the things you smell, the pretty, the plant, in Welsh, the word flowers means something different. So if we break it up, flow actually means arrow or bow. And then I believe it means like to do. So flowers means the one who shoots the arrow, the one who shoots the bow, a bowman, an archer. This whole time I was thinking like it came from people who grew flowers or something, but that name is Welsh, which I think is pretty dope, despite the history of why I have this last name. The name itself is pretty dope. So just looking at all of this, so far, I think this is a really good estimate from Ancestry.com. For those who are interested, I recommend Ancestry.com. I recommend their DNA test. And I also recommend their database that allows you to actually build a family tree. Look at census forms, look at marriage certificates, look at birth certificates, death certificates, look at forms from the U.S. Freedmen's Bureau. They have a lot of great information on Ancestry.com, and I think it would behoove us to kind of dive deeper into that as well. I took all the other tests as well. So I'll be posting those results as well. Next, I'm doing 23andMe, so I'm going to compare those results to my ancestry results as well as what I know about my family. We'll take that test and I'll kind of break down some things that I did in order to find out more things about my family as well.